Good evening and welcome to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen Workshop. It is January 2nd, 2025, everybody. It's 5:30 p.m. Call this workshop to order. On Tuesday, I will have the prayer. The Pledge of Allegiance will be with Alderwoman Haas. Everyone should have a copy of the minutes from the December 3rd workshop and the December 5th regular meeting. We will have certificate of appreciation at the meeting. And then if anyone signs up, we'll have the public comment period, then departmental reports. Then from there, we'll move on to old business. First reading ordinance 2024-17, an ordinance to amend Title 20, Chapter 2, Section 2-208 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding Parks and Recreation user fees. This was deferred at the last meeting, and I was the one who actually requested it to be deferred, and we've made some changes to that. Evan, do you want to talk about those?
Yes, sir, Mayor, I'm happy to do that. The Mayor had asked us to take a look at the policy with respect to use of the multipurpose building, in particular to make it possible to have a policy where nonprofit organizations that benefit and serve the citizens of Laverne have an opportunity to use that building for no charge. And so the provision you have in that proposed ordinance is the policy that we have drafted for you to consider that would allow that to happen.
And one thing, it would restrict those groups. Individually, those groups would have 4 uses of the building a year.
First come, first served.
Yes. So, does anyone?
Would they still schedule through
Yes.
the Parks and Rec office to make sure there's no conflicts?
Yes.
Okay.
They handle all the scheduling for pavilions and for the multipurpose.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Is that nonprofit for Laverne people only?
Mr. Vice Mayor, it's for organizations that benefit. We can look at the exact language.
They have to directly benefit the city is the way that the wording is.
Something that serves the citizens of the city, that promotes the city and serves the city.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on to number 6, first reading ordinance 2024-18, an ordinance to amend the Laverne fee schedule for Parks and Recreation user fees. This was deferred at the last meeting as well. This is the one that encompasses pavilions. Is that right, Bruce?
This is, it adds the provision for the nonprofits and also changes the fee for the baseball, softball leagues.
Okay. Any questions about that?
Just a quick question, Mr. Mayor. Who's looking at to ensure they are a non-profit and what requirements are there?
So that would go through David's team whenever they're doing it. Evan, you look like you wanted to jump in.
Yes, sir. They have to submit the paperwork showing they have current nonprofit status pursuant to the IRS. So that would be the form that you would have that would show that approval. And then David would have to look at that to make sure that that was current. And if it is, that would be what would get them through.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 7, second reading ordinance 2024-19, an ordinance to amend the Laverne Municipal Code by deleting Title 2, Chapter 5, Economic Development Advisory Committee. And just the same as last month, this would remove the Economic Development Advisory Committee. Any questions? Moving on to first reading ordinance 2024-20, an ordinance to amend Title 2, Chapter 2, Section 2-202 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding the duties of the Parks and Recreation Committee, Advisory Committee, and to delete Title 2, Chapter 3 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding the Greenway Advisory Committee. This was deferred at the last meeting. Does anyone have any questions?
I just wanted to make a few more comments about this, being the board representative for the Greenway Committee. We've done a lot of heavy lifting this year as far as getting plans that needed to go to the engineer. We were limited in our resources and being able to do so. This year we did get that added into the budget, so we look forward to doing this. I think it would be a disservice to eliminate the Greenway Advisory Committee at this particular time. I think this project needs a little bit more individual attention. I do think there would be an appropriate time in the future after the completion of the project to bring this on to the Parks Committee.
Well, the thought with it is trying to consolidate some of our boards that overlap with services. A lot of the lifting with the Greenway projects falls under usually David's group and then under engineering with Kyle and Gary. And so regardless of even phase 2 of the Hurricane Creek Greenway, there's still going to be more Greenway projects. I know we're discussing and looking at one on the other side of 24. There's been discussion over the years, even going back to when Mayor Mosley was in office, about phase 2 of the Greenway, then opening up and having an educational route on it beyond just going down to the Hurricane Creek. So there's going to be multiple instances where there's going to be active projects going on. It's just basically it's trying to save their time because it can still be addressed by those same staff groups. And with Parks and Rec as a whole, which encompasses all of it, people can still attend those meetings and still have feedback. I know for many years I wasn't on Parks and Rec, and we'd sit in the audience, and the chairman would sit there and ask, does anyone from the audience want to talk or bring up anything? And they would allow that. So it's something where residents can still have buy-in and discussion on it and still be a part of what's going on. And we'll still have openings back and forth. I think we're about to have an opening for Parks and Rec, from what I understand. So there's multiple ways people can still be involved, but there's always going to be projects, even beyond this one.
I kind of agree with Alderwoman Hobbs. She seems to think that they have made some progression. I would like to see us maybe let this play out, maybe quarterly meetings instead of monthly or two, give it 6 months and see how this is going to play out. And if after that, then bring it back and, I get it. I get both sides. I really do. And I know I've talked with David, and I'm moving my Parks and Rec up instead of every month because I think that's an overkill. I think it's an overkill for the staff and employees and have to stay for people who meetings, but I'd like to see it go to every 3 months maybe, and let it play out for 2 more meetings, and then let's see where it goes.
Anyone else?
What about, I know that Alderwoman Hobbs is chair of the beautification, and that one is staying on. What about not tying in, but having the Greenway and the beautification meeting on the same evening? So that way, like Vice Mayor No said, do it on a quarterly basis if that would be productive. And that way they're together. You don't have separate beautification and Greenway meeting. It's all on one night. And I know that would probably be a lot on Alderwoman Hobbs, but it's a way to keep the staff from having to attend meetings on different Monday nights, or even put it with Vice Mayor No's.
You mentioning that, I know there's been several comments been made among the beautification committee about Greenway improvements and things like that. So to me, I don't even know that it would be a bad idea to consider tying Greenway into the beautification committee. That's been a comment from several of my staff when we're talking about beautification. Well, there was talk about putting a mural on the Greenway briefly, that we've talked about that a few times. So the Greenway does come up often during our beautification committee as far as potential projects around town.
I'd like to get David's thoughts.
Good evening. Yeah, we haven't even really consider combining the beautification and the greenway. That's actually not a bad idea since she's already over both of them. And those meetings generally, especially with the greenway, if there's no progress on that, we either don't meet or we meet for 5 minutes. It's not a bad idea. It doesn't, I mean, our staff is going to be here regardless if they're combined or they're separate. I would like to see some progress going forward in the greenway, you know, but all that ties back to the state and TDEC and Corps of Engineers and then our engineering firm here in the city. So, yeah, we wouldn't be opposed to that.
Alderman Coates.
I think it'd be good just to see if you can get everyone together and see what we can do to work it out. I mean, obviously, the staff needs to be involved, and some of the committee members want to be involved, so let's just see what we can do with it by...
God, I'm loving this new board. Sorry.
Anything else? Okay. Moving on to number 9.
So where does it go from here? Is that something we got to vote on come Tuesday, or how does that just?
Well, the cleanest way is to vote on it, and then if we want to go the route of merging it with beautification, then that could be something that Bruce puts onto the agenda for the following month. That way it's properly advertised, and then there's closure to this.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay. Second reading, ordinance 2024-21, an ordinance to amend Title II, Chapter 5, Section 2-504 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding the powers and duties of the Library Board and the deletion of Title II, Chapter 4 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding the Historical Preservation Advisory Committee. Anyone have any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. First, we've got approve or reject city bids and purchases. First up, we've got a bid for public safety unmanned aerial system drones for the police department. And this is exactly what it sounds like. It's about $60,000, and we budgeted $72,000. So Deputy Chief Hatcher used his coupon to keep us below budget. But it meets all the requirements for aerial drones, and we had 4 different bids for this. Does anyone have any questions?
Are a lot of police departments using these things, Chief?
Yes, sir.
How's it going?
Very successful from what I understand. I've
Okay.
never seen any problems with any of them. I know the fire department uses them. A lot of emergency rescue use them.
There's even some I saw at the National League of Cities. Some police departments are even using them as part of SWAT.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how sophisticated these are.
They'll actually do the entries into the residence before the officers ever make approach.
Mr. Mayor, just a question. Are all the bid representatives, do they handle the FAA? Being very close to Smyrna Airport, there are further restrictions, and it can, if they're not trained appropriately, it could come back on
All
the
of the
conduct.
police department officers that are going to be utilized as pilots will be FAA certified.
Good deal.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of talk about that on social media here lately and on the news about that.
Sure.
Yeah, these aren't those types of drones, though. We know who's operating them. Moving on to number 2, bid for a fire hose for the fire department. This again is coming in under budget, $26,500, and we budgeted $30,000. And so this is something we normally do with getting hoses. They wear out over time and use. Does anyone have any questions?
Question, what to do with the old hoses?
That'd be placed on gov deals.
They'd be surplus to the city's needs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to number 3, bid for the fireworks display. And so this would be the bids were open in December. We did only have 1 bid, and so this would be for the regular fireworks display. The bid price is $25,000. You can see that all in your packet. David, is the display, is it getting larger than previous years as far as not money, but actual, the show size? Or
No, sir. Well, they're kind of limited on the size of shells they can use. I think we pay for a 16-minute show, and it usually ends up being 21. We asked them this year if they wanted kind of like a la carte, a bigger finale to add that in there. They did not add that in there. As you can see, our cost continues to rise. Everything is COVID related, or so everybody continues to say. When COVID hit, our cost went up substantially. I think the previous contract, they had a one-time increase. I think they can increase it every year now. So this is a 3-year contract. But as far as the finale being longer, I think it's a crapshoot. They've always done us good. We've always been pleased with their show. We're kind of glad they're the only ones that put in it. They do pretty much everything around here. They do our neighbors. They do the Titans. They do 4th of July downtown. They probably do New Year's for Nashville also. So, yeah, we're real pleased with them.
Do they do our Christmas also?
They don't do our Christmas. Our Christmas is done here in town by B&B, and they donate that show. It's a scaled-down version. Most of that is residential, where this is a commercial show.
Any other questions? Thank you, David. Next, we've got a proposal for evidence management software for the police department. And this is just like it sounds. It's evidence management software. And so the initial cost, or the initial cost of this proposal is $41,617. There's annual maintenance and support on it, which is almost, it's just under $16,000 a year for support for year 2, and annual maintenance. Year 3, it'll go up to $17,800, and it'll stay that for year 4, and then year 5, it'll be $18,696. This was budgeted in the current year budget. It's $46,000 was budgeted with an annual maintenance cost of $17,000. So for future budgets, we will need to adjust that as those increases hit. Deputy Chief Hatcher, is there anything you want to add to this?
No, sir.
Any questions? Okay, moving on to number 5. HGAC contract purchase. This is for the fire department, personal protective equipment. This is something we do every year to purchase equipment for our men and women. The cost is $70,100, and this is already included in the budget. Does anyone have any questions? Moving on to number 6, sole source purchase. Water meters, water reading technology for the water department. And this is, of course, for basically for new meters. Badger is the type of meters that we use. This is a 2-year agreement with them. I know lately, and when I say lately, it's been a couple months, over the last couple months, we've been switching out quite a few meters. Is that right, Michael?
Yes.
Yes, sir, Mayor, that's correct. Over the last 3 years, we've been swapping out about 1,500 a year, trying to get them, cities throughout, or all the meters throughout the city to where they're under 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And as of next year, fiscal year 25, 26, we'll be completed with that project.
Okay. Okay. And then funding for this is budgeted every year. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you, Michael. Moving on to B on the consent agenda, approved fire department temporary training site project. And so this is just like it sounds. It is a temporary training site for the fire department. And this is at the corner of Mason and Bain on land that was donated to the city from Pan and Tony. And I believe the Planning Commission has already seen and reviewed these plans. But the estimated cost is $94,900, and this was included in the budget. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to C. Approve contract with Creative Concrete Solutions for concrete needed for the fire department temporary training site. And this is, just like it sounds, again, it's tied to that. The price is $12,920. And this is part of the overall budget. I will ask, Ronnie, was there any outreach to Smyrna Ready Mix at all? Because they many times donate concrete services.
I do not recall us contacting them. We contacted contractors that actually would do the work, whereas I believe Smyrna Ready Mix just supplies the material. So we look for contractors that would actually dig the footers, form them, and then put them in place for us, and then put the appropriate mounting hardware where we'll mount those buildings or those containers to those sites.
Yeah, the Connex boxes.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, moving on to D. Approved contract with Container Depot for shipping containers needed for the fire department temporary training site. These all kind of go together, and the cost for this is $24,554.25, and again, this is part of the budget. Does anyone have any questions? One of the good things with this is this will help our ISO rating the next time we have that coming through and reviewed. Is that right, Chief?
Yes, sir. That's it'll help us maintain. Number one is more as important, or maybe more importantly, we'll be able to train more effectively and having the properly trained people. ISO is obviously a critical point for the taxpayers of the city and the business owners. It also will allow, and Chief Hatcher and I were speaking, it's going to give them an opportunity and a place to train as well. So it's going to be a multifaceted building for a temporary site. We're pretty excited about it. So hopefully we will not lose any points, and it'd be really nice to gain some points in that ISO evaluation.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And then moving on to E. Approve use agreement with Legacy Homeschool Resource Center. And so this is just a use for fields 3 and 4 at Veterans Memorial Park for conducting softball games and baseball, softball practices. It's a flat fee of $500 that covers the field maintenance. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move on to new business. First reading ordinance 2025-01, an ordinance to amend the City of Laverne zoning ordinance by changing the official zoning map from tax map 14, parcel 2.00, 5.02, and 14.04, consisting of approximately 48.2 acres located at the northeast portion of the roundabout on Stones River Road, 1500 East near Shriveman, and 480 Stones River Road from an R1 low-density residential and R2 medium-density residential zoning districts to a C1 government use zoning district. This received a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission on November 26, 2024. A public hearing will be held at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to 12. First reading ordinance 2025-02, an ordinance to amend Title I, Chapter 1, Section 1-101 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding the time and place of regular meetings. This was discussed last month when we were looking at meeting times and workshop times. This would change the regular meetings from 7 to 6. Does anyone have any questions?
Does this include the stipulation that the public will be able to sign up for public comment right up until the time of the meeting?
It doesn't address that, but Bruce, what was this you told me last month when we talked about this part?
The concern about that is, pushing that deadline right up to the meeting start time and getting those documents transferred and everything. But also, people can sign up at any time. It's not just, right before the meeting. So if they contact us, they can certainly get on that list. So, it's obviously up to the board, but that part is not in this ordinance.
Do they have to show up at City Hall in person to sign up to speak at the meeting?
The way our ordinance is written now, no.
Not to sign up, but to speak, yes.
Can you call in?
Thank you.
Can't call it
for
in.
that.
Zoom.
We tried that. Any other questions? Okay, moving on to 13, motion to authorize the mayor to execute a final settlement agreement with U.S. Fire Insurance Company regarding the 24-inch water line project. We will have an executive session on Tuesday at 6 p.m., and our legal team will go through that with us. Moving on to appoint or remove board and committee members. We have the Beautification Arts and Advisory Committee. We've got one vacancy still on there, and currently don't have any applications. It is being advertised on social media and Channel 3. If no one's applied by meeting time, this will be removed from the agenda. Moving on to the beer board, we have got one term expiring, which is Dana Blair, and he does wish to be on there. If there's any other applicants by the meeting, that will be added on here, and this will be, I will appoint to this board on Tuesday. Moving on to the Greenway Advisory Committee, we've got one term expiring, which is Carissa Benton, and we will reach out to her to see if she wishes to remain on this board, and we will go from there. And then next we have Historical Preservation Advisory Committee, which we've got the council position, we've got one term vacant, one term expiring, but this is also on for second reading to roll this board into the library board. So that may not be voted on Tuesday night, depending on the outcome of the other vote. Next, we have the library board. We've got two terms expired on the 31st of December. We've got a recommendation from the library board director to remove one member due to lack of attendance. And we have received one application for someone to replace the individual that was wanting to be, or that Ms. Donna is recommending to be removed. And so one of the two positions that's expiring is the board position, so that will be up. That's currently with Alderwoman Haas, and then the current chairwoman, Ms. Benton, and all would like to remain on this board. So next, we've got the Local Emergency Planning Committee. We've got 4 terms expiring on the 31st. And so these are EMS, our Rutherford County EMS Director, Red Cross, Environmental Specialist, and Rutherford County EMA. Next, we've got the Planning Commission. We've got 2 terms that expire the 31st of December, and we will reach out to both of them, but that will fall with, as far as we'll make sure that they want to remain on that board and then see about reappointment. Currently, nobody else has applied for those positions. Next, we've got Stormwater Appeals and Advisory Board. We've got 2 terms expiring. We got, or that have expired on December 31st. We've got Stacy Lanker and Mary Jane Skinner. I know there was an email on Bruce, I think you were on it, where Stacy Lanker wishes to remain on that board. And we just need to reach out to Ms. Skinner.
I talked to her, she wants to stay.
Okay, okay. And then if anybody else applies, we'll have that on there. And then we've got just a couple of FYIs here. We've got the Board of Zoning Appeals. We've got 1 term that's expiring the 31st of January. It's Charlie Jones. He will be reaching out to Bruce. I know he's already reached out to me, but I told him he needs to reach out to the city administrator. He wishes to remain on that board. Construction Board of Adjustment and Appeals. We've got 2 terms expiring at the end of January. It's Lance Lee and Tammy Russell. And so we'll reach out to them to see if they wish to remain on that board or not. And then we've got Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, 2 terms that are expiring, Laura Davidson's and Giles Perry. And so we'll reach out to both of them about that. Now moving on to topic near and dear to my heart, impact fees. Vice Mayor, no, you asked for this to be added onto the agenda.
I did, Mr. Mayor. Come to my attention, and I found out some things, so I thought I would come to this board, get their opinion, get your thoughts, and also, I spoke with Tom Broker in Economic. I spoke with Mr. Coates, and way before the election, so there was no sunshine laws broken, in case anybody brings that up. And I spoke with Evan, so I guess Evan will be the first person. I want to try and see if it is possible, if we can lower, and I know I'm a big advocate of impact fees. I'm the one that started it. I love it. The higher the better. But I think we need to give our economic team another tool on their belt to work with, and some of the numbers that Tom sent me as far as what our surrounding communities are paying in retail, commercial retail only. I'm not talking about warehouses and homes and all of that, but just in retail. I think that we need to really think about lowering it, so that'll give us something to go to. And I reached out to Evan, and I'm just now finding out. Evan, can you tell me what you found out, if it is legal if we do that?
Yes, sir. And so Katie has done the research on that, and she's prepared to address
I
that
should
today.
have
So
even-
you've got a better,
Yeah, I shouldn't have
you
even.
have a better source there than me, for sure.
So the impact fees are set by resolution. So if you wanted to adjust impact fees, it would have to be done through a resolution. The problem with adjusting them downward or in any direction really is that they have to be, per state law, reasonably related to the actual cost of doing that new development. So the way that you tie those, the way you tie the fees and the way you set the fees are based on a study. So it would be our recommendation that if you wanted to adjust the fees, you would need to do it across the board. It would need to be, if, let's say, you wanted to do a downward deviation of 10% all the way across. You could conceivably do that, but it would need to be based on the study. And if you're saying that the study is way too high or way too, in either direction, really, you would need to revise the study. So that's how you make it compliant with the authority granted to the city of Laverne by the state of Tennessee. Does that make sense?
Okay, so when this first started a few years ago, Bruce, we had to pay a company or somebody like $80,000 to do that study. To whereas my argument was, why can't we just pick up the phone and call over there and say, hey, how much is, but apparently in order to do this, we're going to have to go back to that company, pay money for the impact fee study, and then bring it back.
To revise the fees, you would need to revise the study.
So let me ask this, because I know we've increased rates and we didn't get a new study. We got one study at the very beginning of whenever I came in as mayor 6 years ago, and then we kind of adjusted from there and adjusted a couple times over the years. We didn't just ask for a new study each time. What disqualifies us from using the prior study, because that's what we base all of our current rates on?
Nothing disqualifies you from using the prior study, which is what the rates should be based on.
So could we,
2 years ago, we were only charging 50% of the road impact fee. And 2 years ago, this board increased that to 100%. So I think what the mayor is asking is if we can lower that assessment rate back down to whatever percentage.
right?
And I think the question that the vice mayor was asking that we were trying to answer is, can you treat one specific segment of the population differently than the other ones? And I think that's what Katie's talking about.
Yeah.
Like if you want to do an across the board increase or decrease and treat all three, industrial, commercial, residential, the same, that's one thing, and you can do that based on that. But if you're going to treat commercial differently than industrial and residential, you've got to have a basis, a study to say that it should be treated differently.
Because Tom sent an email, I know some of you's got it, for a 30,000 square foot commercial retail, City of Laverne is $234,000 approximately. Brentwood is $132,000, which is $101 less. Smyrna is $176, which is $58 less. Nolensville is $80,000, which is $154 less. Spring Hill, $171, which is $62 less. And Murfreesboro is $150,900, which is $83,000. But my main focus is, can I say the name of the company that I went to and look how much they paid?
Yeah, I mean, I know one. I've talked to Aldi's, and they paid $181,000.
They paid $247,000. I went up there, and the day that I was there, when the guy was talking to me, matter of fact, it was the day that NES was talking to him, which NES, by the way, put up their polls today. I seen them. But they, up on that board, I was looking at it, and that guy told me that we had the highest impact fees of retail, commercial retail, of any city he's ever put one of those in, $247,000. Now, don't get me wrong, I know that in time they're going to make that back, but you know as well as I do, that's going to be coming down to the consumer. But I was hoping that maybe we could lower the commercial retail portion of it, so that to give our economic team, Graham and other people that go out, another tool on their belt and say, hey, you come to Laverne, you got some good retail that we'd like to have. This is about what it's going to cost you as far as those fees. But I don't, and I'll say it out loud, I absolutely do not want to lower homes and warehouses. I want, you know.
So I have a possible idea. Katie, you and Bruce tell me if this is legal, because I want to make sure I stay within that scope. So my thought is twofold. It's number one, see about ordering a new study, which would take several months to do. As a stopgap until that is done, based on the old study, could we take one of the categories, our pick on Michael Dietz, because we had him up here earlier, but like road impact fees, could we drop that back to 50%, and then when we get the new study, we're able to adjust everything from there?
I think you could. You also have to remember you have the CPI adjustment every year as well. And the current numbers reflect that CPI in addition to that raising of the fee that we did 2 years ago. I think if you did all of the road impact fees and reduce those, that would be much better than just picking commercial. But that's my opinion. I'm not the attorney, so.
So explain to, I'm lost.
So
why would you want to lower our road?
Well, like I said, I'm picking on Dietz, but if I'm looking at the breakdown here for retail, when I'm looking at all of the different impact fees, at 100% assessment rate for retail and commercial, it's the largest portion of all of it. It's $7,421 per 1,000 square foot, whereas the other two that impact retail, which is your fire and your police, while they are both still based on 1,000 square foot, police is $279, and the fire department's is $106.
Right, I get all that, but with springtime coming up, if you take money away from it, the impact fees away from him.
This would be just a temporary stopgap till that study is done. Once that study is done, then we bring it back and we look at all of it. At that point, we look at everything because you have a brand new study at that point. But if you dropped all of the road impact, because you're not able to single out using the prior study, I can't just single out retail. But if that's the lion's share of retail impact fees, if we dial that back to, 75%, 50%, whatever this board determines temporarily till we get that study back, and then we take action based on that study as to what our rates should be and where we want to be, then we're able to go from there. So if we get it back and, we decide that we want it at a different percentage based on that new report, then we can adjust it once we have that new report. And it takes several months to get that back.
My guess would be 6 to 8 months. I don't know. It's been a while since we've done
Yeah,
it.
that's a long time to
So-
take impact fees.
Well, that would take it for 6 to 8 months of this year. But then, this solves your issue, but at the same time, then it temporarily solves it, but then it gives us time to get that new report in. Evan and I had a conversation about it a couple months back, and he said we needed a new report to be able to do anything. So this would give us time to get that report in and kind of Band-Aids it until then.
So if we get that report back, can we raise the impact fees to 10% and then cut down the commercial
We can take action.
retail?
We can take action on that report based on whatever those numbers are. So if they sit there and say they're higher or lower, whatever they are, the board can then take action. But we'd have to have that, we wouldn't know the exact percentages at this time.
And how much money would that take away from our streets and roads for that 8 months?
Danielle, no pressure. You
With
could
street-
just off the top of your head.
I don't know. I wasn't here last time. How much it costs?
Dietz, let me ask you if you don't mind coming up for a second, because this, at least this proposal directly impacts you. So, and this impacts, what they use for capital, because they use road impact fees to buy capital items. So, this is impacting your budget, this one suggestion, so thoughts?
I see both sides. Certainly we want to bring retail into Laverne, but we want the roads paved as well. And my budget for this year is $900,000. And y'all have seen the paving quotes that we receive. That doesn't get much work done. So from a maintenance standpoint, obviously we'd like to see them as high as we can possibly get them. But we want to be comparable with our neighboring cities as well. We want to be consistent. So, because if we're too high, obviously that retail, commercial, whatever it may be that we want so badly may jump ship and go to one of our neighbors. So
There's a lot of unknown, but
There's a lot.
I think, can we not do a little bit from each?
Well, this would be your largest one. The other ones, and mind you, if you're doing from each, you're reducing it for all of it. So this, whenever I'm looking at road impact fees, it's for every use. For police, fire, and parks. Parks, you really wouldn't factor into retail. There's no park impact fee for retail, if I'm looking at this right. So you're looking at 3 areas. You take 10% of $106, you're looking at $10.60.
It just seems like there's got to be a way.
Well, a new study is what she's saying.
Yeah, the impact fee has to be, to survive any kind of challenge that we get for doing something impermissible, it needs to be directly related to the actual cost of the new development. So the way that you connect the actual cost is with a study that's done. And when you're screwing around and trying to make the numbers say something that they don't, you're treading into dangerous water.
So if we just flat out do a new study and pay for it, then we don't touch anybody's money, and we just wait till that study comes back. Is that right?
Well, you can do that. You can decide to take no action on the current impact fees. They all remain what they are, and then in 6 to 8 months, then we'd go from there with it.
You receive the information from the study, and it may tell you that impact fees need to be raised, and then you choose to take no action. But then you have the information to know what needs to happen with the fees.
Let me just jump in.
Graham,
Yeah.
you are a connoisseur of this stuff.
He's chomping at the bit over here, I hear him.
He's leaning forward, so that's.
Yeah, let me just say, obviously for the board, it's a real big deal, number one. Number two is, I've been on the planning commission for many years. When I speak to these developers, they really do give me hell about the cost of the
I
rent.
can imagine.
I mean, I don't say we've lost, but we've certainly put some people off because of it, and that affects the city. And obviously, the bottom line is the tax revenue, the sales tax revenue comes in there too. So my comment would be, could we go back to people who did the previous study and see if they can brush it up more quicker than 6 to 8 months? Can we ask that question?
Well, you're looking at a study that at this point is what, 4 to 6 years old, Bruce?
Approximately. I can't
So
remember exactly.
that's a heck of a brush up.
I'm just asking questions. That's what I'm trying to do.
At least we gotta start somewhere, so how much does a study like that cost us, Bruce, do you know?
I don't remember the last, it was $70,000 or $80,000.
Yeah, the last one was about 80,000, I remember that. Is that something we can pull off and get the study done, at least, because according to what she's saying, even if we decide to raise them, we can't do it without that study. We can't just come in here and say, hey, let's raise,
Outside of CPI, we can't.
what is CPI?
The Consumer Price Index, something we did last year, the year before, where previously, if you remember, when we came in as elected officials, you and I, impact fees hadn't been touched for 22 years.
I got it.
So what this does is it kind of prevents that from happening again, because every year they look at how much the Consumer Price Index has either gone up or down and applies that to the impact fees. So instead of having large gaps in between them moving, it makes it that yearly it's reviewed. And then at the same time, we also pulled the impact fees along with just about every other fee into a fee schedule that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen reviews every year.
Well, I think we need to do something to get them impact fees for commercial retail bit. You know, if you got somebody that wants to open up a small sports bar or something, you know, they can't afford that kind of money. Now, Aldi's, they can, but, you know, they're going to pay it back. But I don't want to touch these guys' money. They're, you know, they're going to be back in here in March bumming anyway. So,
Hey, I want to add one thing, because I think it's an interesting point when you have Tom comparing our impact fees versus what our neighbors are. I think if you do elect to proceed with a study of some sort, one of the criteria that I would want the study to address is, why are our commercial fees so much higher than our neighbors? I mean, how can that be? And so I think that's one of the things you can probably include if you do an RFP, for example, you know, in terms of what you want that addressed, that, you know, if that's the accurate rate that it ought to be, then why are we so much higher than our neighbors?
I was told when Aldi's called, because when they got the numbers from Joe, they were not happy and wanted to confirm that this is correct. And I don't know if we do part of it up front and then but they gave me the number of $181,000. They said that's higher than anywhere else in the state that they paid.
okay, well, we'll go with that. That's still high, but
And,
somehow we need to, as a board, if it's left up to us and as a city, like I said, we need to give the economic team more tools on their belts to be attracted to commercial retail.
So they've heard from the loudmouth. Ladies, would y'all like to chime in?
So, based on that, did Tom give you the dates of when those other cities had an impact study? I mean, that's one of the things that I'm thinking of, is if they haven't had an impact fee study and theirs are lower, you know, what was the date of their last one? And it may, I mean, I'm just throwing something out there that,
Well, to answer your question, they are now looking at our numbers, and they want to increase their numbers to ours.
so apparently, we're the leader in this one.
And then let me just say one other thing. I mean, 80,000 or 100,000, it is a very, very small percentage, dollar-wise, of what could be brought into the city with some retail that we're dealing with right now. A very small percentage.
So when you're out talking to these people, Graham, do you feel like what you just said is pretty true as far as we've lost some good potential? And I like Michael's analogy that maybe not, and I get it, potential retail.
Absolutely, without question or doubt.
I know some by name.
Well, What do you think?
No, you don't want to hear what I think.
Huh?
You don't want to hear.
Absolutely, we
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
hear what you think.
Well, that's why I brought it up.
So I don't know that like these impact fees, yes, I know this is a vital part of income and, you know, we want to bring in good quality retail, but at the same time, like, we approved projects in the past that we're not holding developers accountable for the product that they're bringing in here, and that has an impact on what type of retail is getting put in. So that's where I'm coming from. Yes, I think there would be value in repeating a study, potentially lowering impact fees, but I think the picture is much broader than an impact fee.
Okay, so no pressure, Bruce, but if you can get an impact fee, a request for proposal put together and completed and returned back to us by Tuesday.
My understanding is we will not have to do an RFP because this is professional services. This is an
Okay.
engineering group that would do this, and we'll contact the company that we've used in the past and see what their time frame might be, what their cost might be, and we'll get that back to you. I do want to note that I did receive the code's end-of-year report today, and the road impact fees that we collected in 2024 is just over $1.8 million. And that's across all the categories for road impact fees. In total, well, I don't have that number, that includes the monthly revenue, but, so if you reduce that, obviously if you reduce to 50%, you've just lost $900,000 revenue. Please keep in mind the substantial projects that we have ahead of us, South Waldron Road being the biggest one right now. We're gonna have to pay that somehow, so just keep that in mind.
I think at this point, what we're settling on is doing the study and leaving things alone.
Right.
And then basically seeing what the study says and adjusting from there.
Because construction costs have gone up substantially, so I wouldn't be surprised if they say our rates should be higher than they already are.
Please ensure that they're including in this study Nolensville, Smyrna, Murfreesboro, Mount Juliet. There are most similar neighbors. Nashville's a whole different beast with theirs, but that we're looking at those.
We will start working on that.
And can we get the dates of the last impact fees that the cities Tom mentioned? To see when they did their last study or when they did their last increase in stuff? Because I have a feeling that if they're looking at hours and they're potentially doing studies compared on hours, we're gonna end up playing pickleball back and forth across the net.
We do that for salaries. Everyone looks at everybody's. Heck, this past year, even the county was calling us saying, what are you going to do? Because we want to make sure that we are in line with you guys, so.
And Andrew has said that. They're having their own conversation over there.
And can you get the fee schedules from those other cities for us to look at in a similar format to this so we can compare?
We got that from Tom earlier today, so yes, we can send that out.
Any other questions, concerns on impact fees? Michael, you can breathe easy.
He was getting a little heated.
All I know is Ronnie was saying, just don't touch mine, don't touch mine. Okay, moving on to mayor and alderman comments. Alderwoman Hobbs.
I don't have anything tonight. Y'all have a good evening.
Alderman Coates.
I want to say that pleased the way this board's coming together. I've been on many boards through my career here with the city, and just the first couple of meetings here makes me feel good that we're moving the city in the right direction. We do have a lot of interesting projects come to the city, especially on the retail and industrial side, which will come out hopefully later this year. And looking forward to working with the board this upcoming year.
Alderwoman Haas.
Everyone have a safe and happy New Year.
Vice Mayor Nutt.
Notre Dame's 23, Georgia 10 with 4 minutes left.
Someone's going to need to make sure the chief is okay. He's probably watching that, cheering and screaming.
No, I think he's still on the road.
He's driving, so.
He's probably listening then. So, yeah, that's his team, Notre Dame. Well, Happy New Year, everybody. We're at a new year and a new chance to start all over for the city and push forward to bigger and better things. I do want to remind everybody about our Martin Luther King Day ceremony on the 20th. We have Commissioner Hope Oliver coming in to speak, and we will have a special guest performance with Michael Tate of the Newsboys. It'll be over at Laverne Middle School, and should be a lot of fun. Hope to see everyone there. Good opportunity to honor that legacy of what Dr. King has done in this country and what is really still being done. So with that, call this meeting adjourned.